Let's cross up to Queensland and catch up with the former Liberal Senator for Queensland, Amanda Stoker. Oh, she's in Sydney. There you go, unless they've shifted that bridge north of the Tweed. Good to talk to you, Amanda. You must be looking on at these revelations and be quite stunned. Tell me just your off the top of the head reflections of what we've heard about Scott Morrison's secret jobs.
Look, I'm certainly surprised to find that he's been sworn into a range of other portfolios. The explanation that it was COVID-driven makes sense in relation to some of them, in relation to some of the timing. But I don't think we've quite got to the bottom yet of the motivation for some of the other portfolios.
Yeah, look, let's just have a look at some of what Scott Morrison had to say today. And this goes to the point of what was in it for him. Have a look.
I mean, there was no personal advantage to me as Prime Minister in doing any of these things, other than to ensure that should I be in a position that I confronted a set of circumstances that no one could foreknow, that I would be able to take a decision that was in the national interest and would save lives and livelihoods.
I mean, Amanda, this is just so overstated, isn't it? Because it's not as if we're in a war and people are dropping dead. And even if they did, you can get a new minister sworn in almost instantly. There's just no justification, is there?
Look, it's certainly true to say that governments at all levels and of all persuasions did act in the expectation that what they were dealing with was in the nature of a warlike kind of crisis, and that did not turn out, in fact, to be the case or necessary. It's also true to say that there are conventions in place for the continuity of government in the event that a minister is incapacitated or unavailable, and those are well established and long-standing. And so the thing I think we need to know in order to truly understand whether this is being motivated by the right thing or the wrong thing is to know why were those conventions inadequate, and furthermore, if they were inadequate in the context of COVID, then why wasn't there transparency around the fact that these additional appointments were being made? It is unusual, and this kind of a process has the potential to undermine the robustness of Cabinet. And so operating on the very simple principle that the reason you have a cabinet is because 20 minds are better than one, and the energies of 20 people are better than one, then we want to make sure that cabinets are well empowered to robustly do their jobs. And that's what you get when you have transparency around these things and a clear line of responsibility where the buck stops with the relevant minister.
Absolutely. It looks sensible for him to be sharing those extraordinary powers with the Health Minister and the Health Minister knowing about that. I would have thought Cabinet should have known about it as well. But it looks with the others, especially Home and Affairs and Treasury, that happened almost a year into the pandemic, that this is the Prime Minister having reserve powers essentially to overrule his ministers the way he did with Keith Pitt.
And if that were the motivation to try and engineer particular outcomes, knowing that he could overrule in the event that things didn't go his way, then that would be a problem. But we don't know for sure that that was the motivation. And I think there's a little bit more information we need as a community to understand what has driven this. Ultimately, though, as institutional conservatives, we need to not just comply with the letter of the law, which I think it's important to note Mr Morrison did, but we also need to comply with the spirit of democratic and cabinet government, the spirit of shared responsibility and ministerial authority, because those things are important to Australians' trust in government. And I think it's really important to effective relationships within a parliamentary team to be transparent about who has authority over what.
Look, it seems very clear in my view, and John Howard said this last night to Andrew Bolt, that the Governor-General did the right thing. He's supposed to act on the advice of the Prime Minister. But does there need to be a change, be it in the ministerial guidelines or through legislation, that whenever the Governor-General makes any changes to ministerial appointments or responsibilities, they be published in the Gazette or some such?
Look, I think most Australians would have been surprised to find that that wasn't already the case. So yes.
All right, thanks so much for joining us, Amanda. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Amanda Stoker there, former LNP Senator for Queensland. Hopefully we'll see her back in the Parliament sometime soon, perhaps in the lower house maybe.